Would you teach us, please, how, why, and who came up with the modern theology of revelation that you mentioned? Many of our brethren are taught this modern futurist version in their churches and are certain that it is the gospel truth.
Yes, it is a very strange fact of history that people can change their understanding even if it is on solid ground. Now, if you study your scripture, there is no doubt that prophecy is presented historic, continuous. Take the book of Daniel. If you go to Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, there's a historic, continuous progression through time. You start with Babylon, you go to the Medo-Persian Empire, you go to the Greek Empire, you go to the Roman Empire, you go into the Papal Roman Empire. That is the progression through time. If you take the book of Revelation and you take the 7 churches, the same pattern applies. There is a historic progression through time. If you take the book of Daniel and you go to chapters 8 and 9, you have these beautiful messianic prophecies where you also have a historic progression. You start with from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. This is in Daniel chapter 9. Then you go unto Messiah the Prince, and you have a historic progression of the events that will take place. That is how Scripture should be interpreted, and that is how exegetes used to interpret it within the Protestant world.
Yes.
So when they determined the nature of the Antichrist system, Daniel was the key. And Martin Luther referred to the book of Daniel as a book that everybody should read so that they have the key which opens up the rest of prophecy and opens up the book of Revelation. That's why Martin Luther took the book of Daniel and translated it first. Yes. And it was historic, continuous. And it pointed out the progression and the rise of the Antichrist. And it was absolutely plain. We did a whole WhatsApp on that, so we don't have to repeat that study. It's absolutely plain that the Antichrist system exists from the fall of Rome unto the second coming of Christ. Now they take that same prophecy and twist it around, divest it from its context, throw 1 week into the future with no progression whatsoever, make a time prophecy where you use a day for the year, literal, with no biblical support whatsoever, and come up with a futuristic idea of a futuristic Antichrist. Now, where do these ideas come from? They are counter-Reformation ideas. Preterism, futurism. The Jesuits, Alcázar and Ribera, came up with those systems. They were refined later by Cardinal Bellarmine, another Jesuit, to take the heat of the progressive prophecy and the clear depiction of Rome as the Antichrist, and to throw it into the future when the church is not even concerned with it because it's supposedly raptured away. Which again contradicts the very tenet of Scripture. The Hebrews were not removed from the planet by a rapture during the plagues. They were there. That is the type. The antitype will be exactly the same. They were not removed from the tyranny of Pharaoh. They were subjected to it.
Yes.
There will be no rapturing, and only those that don't live up will be subjected to it. No. You have to be consistent when it comes to scriptural interpretation. So these modern theologies come from the Roman Catholic Jesuit stable, and they have been infiltrated into the churches, either indirectly or directly.
Yes.
So that the whole world has come to accept them as the norm. All they have to do is go and study what the Reformers wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Go and take that book, Romanism and the Reformation, if you want to know what the Reformers believed. Or go and study what Martin Luther said on the issue. Go and take the book Table Talk and read it again. There was a war against that book for a reason, and there was a death penalty over anyone who had it.
Sure.
So it must be excellent to read, right? So go and study what the Reformers believed, and you will not be deceived by this, nonsense of futurism and prophetic interpretation that violates every rule in the Bible.
We've also, in episode 33, showed how Jonathan Kahn and those people that were at the mall have this same futuristic.
They have the same futuristic
so we've discussed
theology.
that